Hey, what's up, guys? This is Catherine from kdesignswow.com, and I am doing this tutorial about pure JavaScript, um, using pure JavaScript while creating a slider. And I took this upon myself to do in pure JavaScript because, um, a lot of times we go to jQuery as our way out, our window out, and I wanted to do a slider in pure JavaScript because it really helps you to understand in depth this awesome language. So if you want to build a slider on your website, or just do it by yourself, it's a project of yours because you want to learn JavaScript, this is the route to go. All right, so here it is. This pure JavaScript. We're gonna build it from scratch, and make this happen. Now, what I'm gonna do probably is just do the index and the HTML and the CSS in this video, and then in the second video we build the JavaScript area. One, because it's a lot of code. Well, it's not really a lot of code, but if you want to go in depth with explanations and so forth, or you could just watch me do it, and then you can go in depth with yourself as to reading each line of code and seeing what happens and playing around with it on your own and see if you could build from what I've given you. And this is basically going to be the outcome of all this code. A very nice, simple slider. You can add as many pictures as you want. And this is you manually add these pictures to it. We don't really have a for loop that adds the pictures on its own. I'm getting too deep. So anyway, yeah. So this is a simple slider if you want to learn how to build a slider on your own using pure JavaScript. I couldn't find anything on the web, so I said, hey, I'll do a video on it and help you guys out. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing I did was I created, first of all, I'm using Sublime Text too, to code this in. I usually like to use Coda, but I decided I'm going to use Sublime Text today. You could just Google it, download it, and bam, you have a text editor that can help you to get this tutorial done. Also, we're going to be using some images. I have these images on my computer, so you could just pop like 3 images into the folder if you want, and use them so you could go along with this tutorial. Or I might put up a download link where you could download this project for yourself and mess around with the code. All right. So first I created a folder, and within this folder, well, I call the folder slider, but you could call it whatever you want. Within the folder, I have 3 folders. I have a CSS folder, image folder, JS folder, which is for the JavaScript that we're going to code. And then outside of these 3 folders, I have the index.html. So the CSS folder is going to control the design and feel of the page. The JavaScript is going to control the functionality. And obviously the image folder is how you're going to be able to see the image on the page. All right. All right. So let's delete this, and we can just start from scratch again for all those that don't necessarily know how to get all the pictures on top of each other like this. All right. Let's open our document, our doc tag. So right, HTML. Sometimes I put more things in there, but I'm not going to get into that right now. Open up our HTML tag and our head tag. I like to indent these, kind of help me out. And we're going to close our head tag so that we know what we've created. Then we're going to create our body tag. Right. after we create our body tag, we're gonna go ahead and close this out. HTML. Alright, so let's clean this up a notch. In the header, in the head tag, I don't know why I keep calling it header. We're gonna create a title tag, and we could call it whatever we want. Let's call it pure JavaScript slider. Right. Oop, I cannot spell, huh? Alright, so that's closed out. And then we're going to just go ahead and hit save there for that. Alright, so that's the head. In the body now, we're going to put some more things in the head, but let's just go ahead and create what we need for the body. So the body now, we're going to have a div that's going to house the pictures. And we're going to call that slider. And let's just close it out so that we don't forget at the end to close it out. Alright, within this, we're going to have a div for each image. And you don't have to, but in this tutorial I did, so. And we're gonna call it, let's just call it pics, right? For the fun of it. Let's close that out. Right. And within the first one, we're gonna go ahead and put our image. Let me see what my image name is again. Okay, so London. All right, so we're gonna put an image tag in here. Image. Oops. Image tag, and the source we're gonna say London.jpg. Right. And we're gonna. I like to close mine out. All right, so. Oops. I'm messing up. I don't like so much space in between. And we're just going to go ahead and copy this 2 more times because I only have 3 images. But you could put as many images as you want. And I'm just going to change the name of the image right now. So the name, Montreal and St. Augustine. Right? And you just go ahead and put yours in. I forgot. It's in an image folder. So make sure you put the location of the file correctly. As for me, I am forgetting everything. Since I'm trying to do the project over again, my brain is going ahead of me and rushing through. But I just decided, you know, hey, I'm going to share this because I had a hard time finding something out there that was able to lead me as a beginning JavaScript programmer into the right direction of how to do this. All right. Then we're gonna these navigation down here on the picture. We're gonna go ahead and house that into another div, and we're gonna call that. Let's call it slider nav. Right. And this is going to come into play when we do the CSS. All of these IDs and classes that you see me put in here, I like to put my class and IDs first and then go into the slider, go into the CSS file and make it happen from there. All right. So the slider now. Now within that, we're going to add some A tags. Kind of tricking the browser a little. Alright, so we're going to have some A tags, and we're going to call it, put the pound sign because it's not really changing the page. It's just, we're going to use it to manipulate the pictures. Alright, so I think I'm going to name this current, so we know which one is going to be which one is being clicked at the time that the user wants to see it. Right? And I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and paste it another time. And just change the number here. Yep. And we don't want to leave all of them to be current because alright, so, and that's basically it for the HTML portion of this. And if we come over here and we check it out, we would see that this is basically how it looks right now. So the pages are the pictures are just straight out onto the screen, and the navigation is just right next to each other, no design or anything. Alright, let's link our CSS file. And again, you can name these anything. I call mine, obviously you want to call yours index HTML. And then the CSS now, I think I had started to do this, but we can delete that. And I call mine slider.css. So we're going to link that real quick before we finish up here. Alright, so let's take out a link tag, and I think it's relevant, rel equals style sheet. I haven't coded in HTML in about a month, so I'm a little shaky. href, and we're just going to say CSS / again, the location of your file is very important, so make sure you get that correct. And I like to put media on there, media all, type, we're gonna call it text CSS, right? And then we're just gonna close it out. Then so we're gonna save that. So we linked our slider. Now, because we have here slider as an ID, we're gonna start out with that. We're gonna say pound sign, so slider, and let's open up curly braces. And we definitely want to make the house of the pictures a position relative. Okay. Let's put a width on there, like 900 pixels, and height about 400. Because I previously did a website and the slider is about those dimensions, so let me just stick to that for right now. Text alignment, center, but you could have it however you want it. Let's put a margin on there, and I usually code in EM, but today I'm gonna mix it up. And again, this is just for you to have and mess around with and break and rebuild or add to. You can throw your comments and your questions below the video as well, and I'll be glad to help out in whichever way I can. Slider. So the divs within that slider div, we're gonna want to position them absolute, and that's what's gonna make a whole difference. In fact, let me save that off and refresh this page, and then let's show you. Bam. So basically what happened is the pictures stacked on top of each other, and that's how you get that that slider feeling. Okay. All right. So far our code is going good, and then we're gonna just put some proportions on here. Usually when you have a position absolute, you can't use like margin this and margin that. You have to use top, left, right, and bottom. All right. So just keep that in mind if you ever get stuck trying to design your page and you're wondering why it's not being effective. All right. So just write 10 pixels on all sides real quick. There is a shorter way to do this, but I'm going the long route so you guys can see. You might not even see the difference right now, but it kind of like centers everything. All right. Now the next thing we had was the slider nav. So the next ID we had was the slider nav. So let's go ahead and put that in. So slider, I think we spelled it with camel case. So the slider nav now, we don't want it to be similar. We just want it to be centered and everything. So let's go ahead and put a margin, same margin as the pictures, and let's text align everything center. Everything shows up in the center, and I'm gonna do. So the slider nav is gonna be a little different. We're gonna have to style the hrefs, the a tags that's inside of the slider nav. All right. So within the slider nav, we have some a tags. So I'm just gonna put some nice, neat code on there so that it looks a little presentable, since we're doing like this basic thing, nothing on the page but the slider itself. All right, width, let's make that 2 AMs. Oops, 21, that's crazy. What's wrong with me? Okay, height, 2 as well. Border, not making this too sophisticated. Here we go back to pixels. So I'm all over the place with dimensions, but you could work on it. I like to use red as the border. You know, if you see the slider that I have, it has like this red border here. That's where that comes in, and how thick you want it. Alright, let's put a text. We already aligned the text up there, but it wouldn't hurt to do it here too. So text alignment. Let's put a decoration on there, because sometimes when we're doing a list, it tends to underline things like that, and we don't want that. So let's take off the underlining, right? And just put a color for the text. I think black is fine. And display. Let's make it inline block. Line height 2. And then we're just gonna push it over a little. 0.5. Oops. And right. And let's hit save and see what that does. Oh, nice. Nice. So we have our hrefs right now. If you know, my cursor is going crazy because of that. Because we're triggering the screen. But let's get back to, so we do have a current on there. And I remember us putting a current class. In the current class, this class is a dot. I'm just gonna put a border. Maybe change the border to a different color and call it a day. So border color. Oops. Right. Let's change the color to that. We might want to make it important so it actually does it. Sometimes there's like little bugs. Alright. Oh, I did not purchase Sublime Text. Alright, so we have our current. Now, the concept that we're going to use, we want these pictures to not show when it's not time for them to show. So, I'm going to add a second class onto the pictures so that it basically, when the time comes, hide the picture in the JavaScript, and you'll see how this comes together. So let's add a second class into here and call it hide, so that the two that's underneath the first one, they can be hiding while the first one is showing. Okay, we'll hit save, and then in the CSS, we just want to put a little CSS trickery to it, and say hide, and we're gonna say we're just gonna turn the opacity down, basically, and then a nice fade to it when it's changing the opacity. Okay, and the JavaScript is gonna handle all of this, so we don't have to try to worry about how it's going to look. We're just gonna put the opacity to, I don't know, 2 seconds, right? Should be enough time to transition. And we're gonna hit save. So we basically have our HTML and our slider.css file here. Let's go ahead and hit refresh, and bam, we already see our slider looking great. I guess I could just go ahead and start out with the JavaScript, right? So let's delete everything here. Like, no, all my code is being deleted, right? And let's start out with commenting. Call it a pure JavaScript with fade effect, right? Cool. So let's start by gathering our variables, right? Let's first, we want it to be able to unload. So we're going to use a function called window.onload, and it's a function. I had to research all of this stuff, which was very cool. And if you guys have any more advanced ideas to this tutorial, please go ahead and shoot me a comment. I have no problem learning. This was just a beginner's project that I did on my own through research, and it was pretty cool for me. Alright, so let's make some variables for our JavaScript. And remember, the JavaScript is going to be saved in the JS folder. And actually, let's link the JavaScript files first. So let's put another link on here well, it's not gonna be a link, it's gonna be a script tag, right? So let's put a script tag on here, and yes, it's going to be JavaScript, the type, and the source is the same thing as the CSS, so it's going to be JS folder, and we're going to call it slider.js. Okay, and just hit save. So we have that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and try to get our variables together. So we're going to create a variable called slider. Matter of fact, let me line this up properly. I get a little anal. Alright, so var slider, and we're gonna use the document that get element by ID, and the ID that we want to get is slider, because we had create, oops, it's not what I want. Come on. All right, so we had created a ID called slider, so we want to get inside of this area and manipulate it with JavaScript. So basically that's us finding a variable that connects us to this. All right, so we got our variable for that, and let's make another variable now called, I don't know, I'll call it original class, because we're going to go back from from pick to hide the pick. So original class, and let's call it slider. Okay, that. So we're gonna use this div to get inside of it. So so this div, which we just connected, we're gonna use it and say slider, same thing, get element by. This time it's going to be class. And it took me a while to figure these things out, although it was fairly easy to find on W3 Schools, but W3 Schools can be a little better, I suppose. Alright. So get elements by class name. And I know we have our class called Pix right here. Class Pix. And that's what we want access to. Alright, so we have that variable. We're also going to make another variable called slider nav. And we're going to make that equal to document dot get element, get element by ID. And same thing as the slider ID that we got. We're going to call this slider nav. There we go. Okay, great. Oops, I didn't close that out. Semicolon. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we want the H tags within the slider nav. So we're going to call that var links equal slider nav dot get element. And this time it's not class name or ID. It's going to be get element by get elements by tag name. Yeah. This was painful to find out because I was searching. I'm like, why? All right. All right. So we have majority of our variables set, and we're probably going to want a counter because we're going to need to know when everything is changing. So let's create a counter on here as well. All right. Now, I did everything as I went along with the concept and how everything made sense. But I guess we can as well. All right, so follow along. Let's do it the way that I did it. All right, so we're going to create a function called play slider. This is how the slider plays on its own. So play slider, right? And it is a function. Within this function now, we're going to just create some simple for loops. All right. All right. So for var I equals 0. So we're basically gonna make we're gonna make 0. We're gonna make each picture disappear and appear using the class that we have on here. Hide, show, show is without the hide class on it. So that's basically what we're doing here with place slider. So we're gonna create a var I equals 0. This is a for loop, and I is less than the original class dot length. Right, so we want to see that all of the divs that have picks on it goes through this for loop. And when it gets to the last one, that's when it's going to stop looping. Okay, so and then we're going to just I++. Keep going through. All right, now within this for loop, we're going to say original class I, it's an array, oops, that class list. And if you're not sure how this functions, go ahead and look it up. I took a while to dig it up as well, and it's a pretty cool function. So it's going to add the hide class to everything that doesn't have it, and it's going to fade out. It's going to add another. It's going to add the fade out class to it as well. So that 2 seconds time that we had to fade out a picture, it's going to add it to it as it hides it. And that's pretty cool. And then links, we said the links was the A tags. Links I, this is how we know how to change the color here on the navigation for the slider. So if it's on picture 2, we want picture 2 to be black, not red border, right? All right, so links, we're going to also put a class. We're going to remove current because we have it on the initial one. So we're going to remove current from everything that's not showing at that time, right? So basically what this is saying is for each pick div, everything that has the class that has the class pick and it doesn't have hide to it or fade out, we're going to add it to it. And on the nav, the nav number is supposed to match up with the pick. So every link we want it to change along with the hides. When you're hiding something, we also want the links to change accordingly as well. So that's basically what that is saying. And we're gonna put a semicolon there. And here's how we track it. We said, well, if this is how a counter comes into play. So if counter is the same as the total amount of picks inside of the file, we want it to reset counter. So counter starts over. So counter don't keep going as if it has no tomorrow. And I think I have a lowercase count. No, I have an uppercase counter. Oh, no. Let's put that as lowercase. Alright. Alright, so counter, we're going to reset counter to 0. Okay. And so that's the for loop, and then outside of that for loop, we want to just keep removing the hide because we're adding hide and fade out. We want to be able to, well, we don't want to take off the fade out because then we also want it to fade out when it's changing, when it's showing as well. So let's say original class, and this is how we keep track of the slide. So every time the slide change, we're gonna add 1 to counter. So if counter is 0, we want that to be the pick that we're on. Add class list, and we're going to remove hide, the class hide. And then we're going to do links as well. Same thing, because we want it to be simultaneously working together, changing together. We're going to add current. So that's how we're able to check what's current from what's not by doing it in this way. And then we're going to add counter. We're going to add one to counter every time that happens. So every time we went to current, we add one to counter so that we know that every time this changes, the next one that's showing, because it's removing hide from it, so it's showing. So when it shows, it's showing us that counter is also up to date with the fact. So if it's showing 1 now, counter is going to be at 0. And once it changes, we're going to add 1 to counter. Counter is 1, and we know that that would be number 2 pick that's showing. Okay. All right. So after we did that, now, so we have the function called play slider, and we're gonna want something that also can track the clicks, the amount of clicks that are being processed. And I think I need to put a semicolon there and a semicolon here for the entire thing. All right, so this is going to be a little longer function to check what's clicked. It's a little bit interesting. All right, so and we can, let me see if this works right now. Let's hit save on this JS. So right now we didn't call the function yet, so in an interval. So we're not gonna see anything yet. All right, let's create another function. Oops. Well, okay. And we're gonna call it, let's call it what clicked. And I read this on Google. Someone did something like this, and that's how I got this function to work this way. All right. And it's a cool concept. All right. So we're going to create a couple variables. So we're going to call this var x. And this is just how to track the event. We need to know which one is clicked, and this is how we're doing it. So var current, we're going to make current equal x minus 1. So if they clicked on 1, we're going to change it inside of current to 0 to match up with the way JavaScript counts, basically. Okay. Then we're going to put a counter in here. I'm going to put the set interval functions in here and declare intervals and after, because we're going to need to do that stuff. So so counter equals current. We're gonna make current equal counter. So when they click on something, we want to change wherever the slider is to go to what they clicked. That's basically what it is. In the simplest version of the explanation. All right. So var I equals 0. I is less than the original class dot length. Again, this is how many picks are inside of that div called slider, and we're gonna I plus plus. So it's basically similar to the for loop that we had recently created. Okay. So within this for loop now, we're gonna put an if statement. So if I is not equal to counter, right? And remember when I spoke about that, I is not equal to counter. We want the original class I, whatever it is, so class list. We want to add the hide function to it, right? And the fade out function, class. Sorry. So basically, this is saying if I is not equal to counter, because we just made counter whatever they clicked, which is current. So if I is not equal to what they clicked, we want to hide what whatever that picture is with the fade out functionality attached to it, as well as we want to mess around with the links too. We want the link that the slider is currently on before being clicked. We want to remove current from that because it's no longer current. We want it to go to what the user wants it to be now. So we're going to remove current from there. Okay. And let's put a semicolon there. I tend to forget my semicolons all the time, which is really bad. All right. And then we want to put another if statement there. So after this for loop. So if counter is equal to the original class.length, again, we want to go ahead and reset that. Because because counter is what helps us to find out what's current, what is actually showing at the time. So we want to keep that up to date, right? All right. So we just added that if statement. So let's see. So we have here where it should be playing by itself, and then if it's clicked, after we do that, because it's similar to here, we want to go ahead and put the original class dot not original, the counter. We want to keep remove and hide because we just hid what wasn't being clicked. I want to go back to the original. I want to hide that now. As well as links. We want to do the same thing. You could have just copied and pasted, but just for class list. So it's basically like what we did down there. And I'm gonna put current on there. We're gonna increment counter. Awesome. All right, now we have to do some moving around here because it's not finished. We still have to. We want to know how much time the slider is like. The slider needs to keep going, right? So we need to call the function somewhere over a duration of time. And I researched and I'm like, okay, so what's going to keep the slider going? And let's check this. Okay. So what's going to keep the slider going? And I researched and I found out that set interval. So we don't have, do we? Nope, we don't. All right, so let's create a I'm looking here and we don't have a variable for get clicked, which would bring into, which would call the, alright, so get clicked equals function. We're going to pass link into there. Alright. So our first set interval, we'll call our first function that we made, and we're going to play like every 5 seconds. Right. And then when they click on what's clicked, when they click on it and it picks up what's clicked, we want to assign that to X, but then we also want to clear the interval so it doesn't continue going as if nothing was clicked. So interval, so we're going to clear it, and then interval called play slider, and I think it's 5 seconds right there. Yep. So we have a clear interval there in that function. Right. The next thing we want to do, I think we have to put it one more place. Nope, I think that's it. I'm gonna hit save. And, where did we call that? We didn't put event clicked anywhere. Alright. Semicolon here. So we're gonna put a slider nav dot add event listener. This is where we're gonna call the click function, because I'm like, I didn't put that in yet. Okay, so click. So when something is clicked, we're gonna call this function, and we don't want it to return anything. Right. I think this is the wrong file for me. Let me go back into Finder and call the index page again. I think I have it in the wrong folder. Yeah. Alright. So we should have seen something happening here. There you go. So I got a little worried there. I'm like, nothing's happening. I just coded all of this, and bam, that's our slider. So if we clicked on, alright, so now it's on 1. If we click on 3, it should go back to 3. It's a little rough there. The clear interval took a while to clear. Let me see if I have it right. Clear interval, set interval, play slider. It looks about right. It's a little rough, but at the end of the day, you have yourself a slider, and you could play around with the timing, and definitely, you know, get yourself acquainted with JavaScript. And it was fairly easy because of the thought process. It's very logical if you think about it. CSS helped a lot with this, made it so much easier. Whereas in jQuery, you know, you probably have to worry. It's easier in jQuery. Probably this would come out to be like 10 lines of code for jQuery. You just put the fade out function and how long you want it to be, and the fade in function and the next and end. and even the append to. But this for me was fun because it helped me to think through what I wanted to happen on the screen and how I was going to get it done. All right. So if you have any questions or you want to share your comments or you feel like, there could be a better way to do this, I am open to your comments. Like I said, I'm learning JavaScript. I'm having tons of fun with it. And hopefully, in my next project, I would be like way more advanced than this. So for all of those DIY website users out there and they want to know how sliders function, this is a great video to watch for that. Don't forget to subscribe and like my video if you like what I've shared with you today. And that's it for now, guys. All right, later.